This was a seed cast into endless time. A word is spoken, or a light is shown. A moment sees, the ages toil to express. So, flashing out of the timeless, leaped the worlds. An eternal instant is the cause of the years. All he had done was to prepare a field. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. For all that he had been must now new shape in him her joy to embody, to enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. But now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. His single freedom could not satisfy. Her light, her bliss, he asked for earth and men. But vain are human power and human love to break earth's seal of ignorance and death. His nature's might seemed now an infant's grasp. Heaven is too high for outstretched hands to seize. This light comes not by struggle or by thought. In the mind's silence, the transcendent acts, and the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. A vast surrender was his only strength. A power that lives upon the heights must act. Bring into life's closed room the immortal's air and fill the finite with the infinite. All that denies must be torn out and slain, and crushed the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. Now other claims had hushed in him their cry. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone. We'll read this way.
This, this was a seed cast into endless time. A word is spoken, or a light is shown. A moment sees the age
At the ages,
ages. The ages toil to express.
you can read the next two lines also.
So, flashing out of the timeless light, the
Or the worlds.
worlds,
Worlds.
worlds,
No, not worlds. Worlds. Yeah?
the eternal instant is the cause of the years.
Okay, good. This was a seed cast into endless time. This, it means this experience that we read about last time. This experience of King Asvapati realizing the presence and the power of the Supreme Divine Mother. This meeting, this experience was a seed. When a seed is cast, it falls on the ground and it may sprout. So this was a seed cast into, not into the soil or the earth, but into time. So Sri Aurobindo explains what he means. He says, a word, a great creative word is spoken, a command is given, or some light is shown. It's an experience. A moment sees, that experience is just there for a moment, and the ages toil to express what is in that seed which is cast into time. It will take a long time for what has been cast from the eternal into time to sprout and get expressed fully. And then he says, this is the way that the whole universe was created. This is Sri Aurobindo's view of the Big Bang. There was a moment like that when all the potentialities of this universe came flashing out of the timeless. A seed is cast, and the ages, all the eons, toil to express all the potentialities contained in that moment. Yes, Francesca?
Explain the word toil.
Toil. Toil means that it's not easy. It means that the ages have to make a great deal of effort and labor in order eventually to be able to express what is contained in that seed moment. Toil is hard work. So an eternal instant, an instant which comes from eternity, which has an eternal significance, but in our terms it's just an instant, a short moment, is the cause of all the years, the whole course of time. There's a moment when time starts. That's what the physicists tell us about the Big Bang. That's when time began, at the singularity. So Sri Aurobindo is telling us that that singularity, that's a seed which comes out of eternity, manifests time and space and everything that will be unfolded in time and space. It's okay, we can go on. Dhanalakshmi.
All he had done was to prepare a field. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. For all that he had been must now new shape in him her joy to embody, to enshrine, her beauty and greatness in his house of life.
Yes. So he's done so much, he has toiled so much, had so many experiences, seen and understood so much, but he realizes that all that he's been doing is to prepare a field of action. And they are just small beginnings, and they are asking for a wonderful fulfillment, a mighty end, a very powerful fulfillment. And he realizes that everything that he has been, he's been a lot. No? He's drawn the energies that transmute and age. He has been a great realized being. But everything that he had been now has to be transformed, has to be reshaped, new shaped, in order to be able to embody in himself the joy of the mother, the joy of the mother's presence, in order to be able to, for his life and being to be a shrine, a sacred shelter for her beauty and greatness. So in his house of life, this house that is the body and the individual formation, this has to become a shrine for the mother.
But now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. His single freedom could not satisfy. Her light, her bliss, he asked, for earth and man.
Yes. So through all this great tapasya that he's done, all this great journey that he's made, he has widened himself to the wideness of the universe. He's become a universal being, and even he's gone beyond that. So there's no room for a small individual self there anymore. No? So that demand of his heart, it's no longer for the liberation of one personal soul. His single freedom could not satisfy. He wants her light and her bliss for earth and men. And this phrase, for earth and men, I think it occurs 4 times in the poem. Here it is King Aswapati's aspiration. Later on we see that this aspiration to have the healing power of the mother, the transforming power of the mother, is voiced by Savitri. That is her prayer. And finally the fulfillment is promised to her for earth and men. So this is the moment when you could say, his individual aspiration, he becomes a representative of the whole. Before he was doing it as a representative, in the sense that he's a human being, he's doing all this for the whole human race. But here this now becomes his conscious wish and intention to bring that transforming power to the earth. Francesca.
But vain are human power and human love to break Earth's seal of ignorance and death, His natures might seem now an infant's grasp. Heaven is too high for outstretched hands to seize.
To seize.
To seize.
Yes. So human power and human love, they have a certain power, but they are not strong enough to break Earth's seal of ignorance and death. This Earth and the Earth soul are in the grip of ignorance and death. And our human power, however strong, our human love, however pure, is not strong enough to break that seal. So he realizes that although he's become much more powerful than most other people, all this cosmic might has been put into his hands. It now seems just like the grasp of a small child. Nothing very powerful. Heaven, that world of divine life, is too high for our outstretched human hands to get hold of. Yuli.
This light comes not by struggle or by thought. In the mind's silence, the transcendence acts, and the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. A vast surrender was his only strength.
Yes, thank you. So this transforming light, it doesn't come about by our efforts, and it doesn't come about by the power of our mind, by thought. It's when the mind becomes completely silent that the transcendent, that power which is beyond manifestation, is able or acts. And it's in the silent heart, the heart that is free of all movement, it's silent, receptive, empty. That hushed heart hears the word of the creative word of command, which doesn't need to be uttered, doesn't need to be spoken. It is heard in the heart. So King Aswapati realizes that the only strength he has is surrender. And he is able to make a vast surrender. We can really only surrender to the Mother, to the higher powers, what we are aware of and in control of in our own being. So that is why sadhana and effort are so important for us to gain some kind of initial control, awareness and control over our own movements. And when we have that control, then we can surrender. If we don't have control over these things, we may wish, we may offer them to the Mother, she may accept them also, but it's only when we have control over them that we can truly offer them. So he, and through all his efforts, he's widened so much. This is now a vast surrender that he can. That's the only strength that he has. So who's next to read Mary?
Power that lives upon the heart's just act. Bring into life's closed room the immortal's air. and filled with the finite, fill the finite with the infinite.
Yes. So it's what Martin was saying, a power from the heights must act. And that brings into life's closed rooms that air of the immortal, the deathless air. And that can fill the finite, all this limited life. The breath of the infinite can come and act and do things through the instrument. So if we ever experience something like that, that's a blessed moment in life. Jenny, would you read?
All that things must be torn out and slain. And crushed the many longings for whose sake. He was the one for whom our lives were made.
Yes. Very, very simple words, no? This is the rejection part. All that denies, everything which refuses and says no to that action of the power from the height, that has to be torn out of ourselves, slain, it must be killed. We have to crush those many, many longings, all the life longings, all the longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. Why are we here? We've been given life and breath in order to express that one. So this is the rejection side. Aspiration, surrender, and surrender implies rejection. Joel.
Now other claims had hushed in him their cry. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone.
Yes. So all those other claims, families, affections, duty, all those things have fallen silent in him. The only thing that he wants, that he's longing for, is to draw her presence and power down into himself, into his heart and mind and breathing frame, his body. And the only thing he's yearning for is to call her healing touch, her touch of love and truth and joy, to call it down forever, not just for a moment, but permanently into the darkness of this suffering world. So his soul was freed and given to her alone. This is what it means when it says about the aims. All aims in her were lost and found in her. So all other aims become meaningless, but in her they again assume a different significance and value. We can read these lines together, take them into ourselves as much as possible. This was a seed cast into endless time. A word is spoken, or a light is shown, a moment cease, the ages toil to express. So, flashing out of the timeless, leaped the worlds. An eternal instant is the course of the years. All he had done was to prepare a field. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. For all that he had been must now new shape in him her joy to embody, to enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. But now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. His single freedom could not satisfy. Her light, her bliss, he asked for earth and men. But vain are human power and human love to break earth's seal of ignorance and death. His nature's might seemed now an infant's grasp. Heaven is too high for outstretched hands to seize. This light comes not by struggle or by thought. In the mind's silence, the transcendent acts, and the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. A vast surrender was his only strength. A power that lives upon the heights must act, bring into life's closed room the immortal's air, and fill the finite with the infinite. All that denies must be torn out and slain, and crushed the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. Now other claims had hushed in him their cry. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone.